Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and today we have with us Dr. Judy Morgan, and she is a doctor of veterinary medicine with many extra letters behind her name, which I will let her explain because I'm not as familiar with those as on the human side. But she has over 40 years of experience as an integrative veterinarian, acupuncturist, chiropractor, food therapist. She is a best-selling author, international speaker, and a podcast host of her own of Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets. Her goal is to change the lives of pets by educating and empowering pet parents worldwide in the use of natural healing therapies and minimizing the use of chemicals, vaccinations, and poor quality processed food. She also has a beautifully long list of awards and recognitions. Some of the ones that stood out to me were in 2022, she is a Game Changer Award winner. 2023 People's Choice Award winner. In 2024, she was named Holistic Veterinarian of the Decade. She has been featured in many publications, but anyway, and we'll talk about your books too. So I will let you also bring those to the forefront. So welcome. I'll stop talking. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here. So you actually already gave away what the initials stand for. It stands for Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, Certified Veterinary Acupuncturist, Certified Veterinary Chiropractitioner, and Certified Veterinary Food Therapist. So there you go.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I've had people try to make up what those initials stood for, and they come up with some really weird things. So
yeah. Like, I'm not going to do that. Well, welcome. I'm really excited to have your knowledge bestowed upon us and sort of hopefully guide us in the right direction with our pet health and our pet care. So how did you decide to sort of move from the allopathic, as we say in medicine, which is the more Western medicine, quote, I'll call it traditional, even though that's really not what traditional medicine is either,
right,
into this more integrative space?
Yeah, it's really kind of funny because if we think about traditional medicine, well, what was traditional in this country originally? It was what the Indians were doing, using herbs and food. And so, yeah, it is kind of weird that we call Western medicine traditional medicine. So yes, I went to veterinary school at the University of Illinois. So Midwest, very boring, very, very traditional. And I graduated in 1984. So in the early 80s, we weren't talking anything about anything alternative, complementary, holistic. We probably would have been laughed out of our socks at the time. So I practiced traditional or allopathic medicine for the first 10 years. I actually hated my job. And then I had the opportunity to back up a little bit. About 5 or 6 years into practice, I lost my job for being pregnant. You could do that in 1989. It was a very interesting time in my life. So I started doing relief medicine. And one of the relief jobs that I had was emergency medicine, which I actually loved. And I stuck with emergency medicine in addition to my practice for 10 years, just because if you're a type A personality and you really like that, everything's crazy around you, emergency medicine is the place for you. So it was nuts all the time, but I learned so much there that it was totally, totally worth it. But about 10 years into practice, I was a minority partner in a practice, and a postcard came in the mail. This is when we used to actually get solicited for things by real snail mail. Again, I'm dating myself. I am from the land of the dinosaurs. But this postcard came and it said, "Learn veterinary orthopedic manipulation. It will help your orthopedic surgery patients recover more quickly. It'll help your patients with, vertebral disc problems." It just basically sounded like, hey, this is better than sliced bread. So I signed up for it, not realizing that it was a chiropractic course. So, to me, when I look back on it, it's like, God said to me, this is not working out what you're doing right now. You need to look at something different. Here you go for this. And so I wasn't sure that I really believed in it, but I took the course because I didn't realize what it was until I got there. And I was already immersed in it. And I was like, oh, doggone it. And so when I went back to work the following week, I started using this in the practice. And the results were miraculous. And animals that were carried in and couldn't walk would run back out the door. And I kind of went, huh, that's a little weird. If this works so well, what else is out there? And so I started getting to be known in the local area as like I had the dinkiest practice in the entire county. We were in a fairly poor county in southern New Jersey. And I had probably had the smallest practice, but I was the first one that got digital x-ray. We didn't have to use our dip tanks anymore. So that was like a huge breakthrough. And I was the first one who was doing anything at all alternative or complementary. So people started, word of mouth, people started coming. And then I started learning from all those people that were coming. Like everybody, when you start to meet up with people who have a more holistic mindset, they start teaching you new things. And so people would come and talk about raindrop therapy and essential oils and color therapy and light therapy. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much out here to learn. And I had one client who was a 3rd generation homeopath. And I was like, okay, I don't know anything about that. So she gave me, oh gosh, probably about 100 hours of cassette tapes. Again, dinosaur, we don't use those anymore, but about 100 hours of cassette tapes with homeopathy lectures from Dr. Richard Pitcairn, who's one of the greatest veterinary homeopaths ever. And she had his whole course material. And I started diving in and I went, oh man, I don't like this. This is not for me. Like, I get it. I understand how it works. This is just not speaking to me. It is, my body is not, and my mind are saying, nope, no passion here. So I politely gave it all back to her and said, this isn't for me, but thanks. But maybe you could help me out with cases because you know so much. And then I took my first acupuncture course. And I was really hooked. And so Chinese medicine is what really kind of got my wheels spinning and really changed the chiropractic had done a lot to change the trajectory of my career, but the Chinese medicine took it to a whole nother level. So I learned acupuncture, started learning Chinese herbal medicine and food therapy. And for me, food therapy was I say that every holistic practitioner, something is going to grab hold of them and say, this is it. This is what you were meant to do. And for me, it's food therapy and using food. So if the food itself is not powerful enough, if I design a diet and that's not powerful enough to get the changes I want, then I will add in herbs, which are basically concentrated food. And then combine that with acupuncture and chiropractic. And the changes in my patients were miraculous. And so we were taking all these animals that had chronic inflammatory disease, getting them off their medications, getting them on good food, getting, their body weight to become more ideal. Just so many changes that we saw in them. And one of the things with holistic or complementary medicine is that usually by the time people bring their pets to us, they've already been to 2 or 3 traditional veterinarians. They've gotten a whole bunch of opinions. They might have been to a few specialists, and things just aren't getting any better. And they're frustrated as all get out, or they've been given a terminal diagnosis and told there's nothing that can be done. And that's what lands on our doorstep. And I mean, so the first few years were tough because it's like, I'm just like this baby holistic practitioner. I'm just learning all this stuff. And you guys are bringing me the hardest cases there are. Like, could you bring me a young, healthy animal and let me start from the beginning and, we'll just keep them healthy. It's so much easier. But I think it happens that way because we have to learn so much. And those difficult cases bring us a lot of learning, a lot of opportunities. So, it was great. And it literally changed the trajectory of my career.
Yeah. Funny thing about that, the universe doesn't often bring us the easy things that.
No. Nope.
So thank you, universe.
Yep.
Okay. So I love that. And then let me ask you this. Do you find that there is any age specifically, or like a time through an animal's life where maybe it becomes maybe all that chronic inflammation can't be fully reversed, or you can I guess I'm thinking about like more like the geriatric space, because I think a lot of us too are like, maybe animals are amazing compensating beings. Like, humans are too, but animals really, really are,
Yep.
because of how much energy they absorb from us. I think personally.
Yep, they do.
And so a lot of times we don't realize something is off with our beloved little beings until, it's pretty developed.
Right.
And a lot of times that can be older age.
Yeah,
So
particularly with
what's your
cats.
perspective? Yeah.
Cats, they are kind of low on the totem pole of things, who's in charge. If you're a lion, you've got a lot underneath of you. If you're a little kitty cat, you've got mice and squirrels and birds under you, but everything else can eat you. So cats are really, really good at hiding their symptoms. So a cat may not tell you he's got kidney failure until he's down to 10% kidney function. That's just kind of how they, that's just kind of how they are. But I will tell you, I have done so much rescue work over the years, and I am the chief veterinary officer for Monkey's House Senior Dog Hospice and Sanctuary. And the oldest dog that I have rescued was 16 when we brought him in. He lived to 19. When he came to us, he was blind and deaf, full of fleas, every parasite you can imagine, horrible skin, infected everything, ears, skin, eyes, like everything a mess. And we did manage to get his vision back by clearing up all of his eye infections. His skin was beautiful. He became just... We did end up losing both ear canals because they were just so chronically infected as a Cocker Spaniel. But he lived to 19, and to look at him, you would look at him and go, oh, he looks like a young dog. I mean, he just, and with Monkey's House, these are the dogs that come to Monkey's House come from high kill shelters. So they have no one to care for them, and they have a terminal diagnosis. So a dog gets dropped at the shelter or picked up off the street. The shelter veterinarian looks at them and says, oh my gosh, he's got heart failure, kidney failure, liver failure, 3 kinds of cancer. We're just going to put him down. And at Monkey's House, we say, no, we'll take them. Great. Thank you very much. And the longest we've had one stay there is 7 years. So not only are we taking care of all of their chronic health issues, we try to reverse things as much as possible. But sometimes, if so much kidney function is gone, or so much, the liver is pretty good at regenerating, but if so much kidney function is gone, it's like, okay, well, how do we stop the degeneration? How do we get the maximum output out of what we have left? And so much of that is done with food therapy. So every dog that comes in has an individual diet designed based on what is it that we're trying to do. And the dog that was there for 7 years survived 3 different kinds of cancer. We don't use chemo or any kind of traditional. We will use medications if needed. If we have a really ugly tumor that can be removed, we're going to take it off. But everything else is done with supportive care. And a lot of that also includes mental well-being. So so over the years, Monkey's House has hosted about 200 dogs in about the past 10 years. And at any one time, there can be 30 or 35 dogs in care at the hospice, and they all live in a house. It's not a kennel. And so one of the things that is done, they bought a bus, and the bus is outfitted with kennels and seatbelts for the dogs so that the dogs can go on field trips. They're in New Jersey. So they go on field trips to the beach where everybody gets to run on the beach. They go to field trips to parks, to forest with good walking trails. They every year they go get their Christmas pictures with Santa at a big nursery that hosts them. And they have physical therapist who comes in every week and works with the dogs to keep their mobility up. So there's so many things that we can do to improve the lives of our pets. And a lot of them, it's not expensive. Physical therapy, you can learn to do that at home. Taking your dogs on field trips, Anybody can do that, getting them outside, getting them exercise, keeping their mind entertained. So even with our older dogs who are mobility challenged, we can give them puzzle toys to play with. So, hide treats, let their go on safaris with them. Don't take them on a tight leash walk, give them a longer lead, let them go sniff everything. So there's so much that we can do for them, and it is never too late to make a change. So even, I remember a client when I was pretty early on my holistic journey, they brought in a very large dog who was down, and the dog had cancer. And so the family came in and they were, crying, and they said, well, we have to put the dog down because, the dog's dying. It won't eat. It can't get up. And I looked at the dog, and the dog's eyes are still bright. It's down, but its eyes were bright. And I said, I don't think your dog's done yet. And you guys haven't had time to prepare yourselves. Like the family was a wreck. And I said, if I can do something to give you a little more time, give you some time to prepare, give you some good days, would that be something that you would like? Oh, please, anything that you can do. I said, okay, great. I'm going to give you a handwritten diet. Will you make the food for the dog? Yeah, we'll do whatever it takes. If we can get more time. I said, okay, great. So I made a diet for the dog. I may have given the dog some medications. I can't even remember at this point. I probably did more with supplements. I may have done acupuncture. I may have done chiropractic. But at the end of the appointment, we helped them get the dog back out to the car, gave them instructions for what they needed to do as far as massage and keeping the dog clean and whatever needed to be done. And so I didn't see them for a few months. And a few months later, they came back in with the dog, and the dog had lost the weight and was now a normal sized dog. It was up walking around. It was eating like a champ, still had cancer, eating like a champ. And they said, this has been the best 3 months we've had in the 10 years we've had the dog. And so instead of it being the end of the road, and, the thing is, it bought them time to come to grips with, yes, we still have a cancer. It's still, kind of wreaking havoc. And we are going to say goodbye, and it's probably not in the too distant future, but giving people the opportunity. And they basically said, making the dog's food was an act of love. And every time they served the food, they just felt this really close bond and felt like, when you give people something positive to do and they feel that they are part of the process, it makes such a huge difference for both the family members and for the animal. I mean, what animal isn't going to say, oh my gosh, you just made me this phenomenal meal. You didn't put little dry, dead balls of brown stuff in my food bowl. Wow, this is great. And the thing is, our pets don't have anticipatory grief. Like, that dog wasn't laying there when they came in going, oh my God, I'm going to die tomorrow. Oh my God, I'm dying. It might've been laying there thinking, I don't feel so good. But, it just wanted to be with the people. And so that's what our pets want. Our pets want to spend every day. So we had a dog that was diagnosed with intestinal lymphosarcoma. Not a good diagnosis. She was only 8 years old. And we only had her for 8 weeks after she was diagnosed. But every morning, and I didn't know the timeline. I knew it wasn't good. But every morning we would wake up and say, what does Myra want to do today? And my husband, even though I was still working, my husband and I would make a plan for the day. And Myra loves squeaky dinosaurs. I put that out on social media. She got 300 squeaky dinosaurs in the mail from all of my followers. Every day I would come home with a box from the post, 1 or 2 or 6 boxes from the post office, or bags that people had dropped off at the office. And Myra would spend every night when I got home just shredding dinosaurs. And, it was such a joyful thing. I have so many films of her shredding dinosaurs. And then on my days off, we would say, okay, what does Myra want to do today? And we would go to a pet store, or we would go to a park, or we would go out to a lunch and, eat in a restaurant where she was allowed to be. And we had 10 dogs at the time. So she would choose a friend to take with her. And at the end of the 8 weeks, when we had to say goodbye, people were like, oh, you must be so devastated. And I'm like, well, I'm devastated because she's not here with me anymore. But I'm so thankful that every single day for 8 weeks, we said, what does Myra want to do? And when when you have that attitude with them, and she wasn't thinking every day, oh my gosh, I'm going to be dead tomorrow. And I also was really careful. If I had to be sad and cry, I left the house. It's like, I'm not going to cry in front of this dog because then she's going to wonder why I'm upset, because all she
Right.
wanted to do was rip up dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go back to the designing of the diet. How do you go about that? Because you said it's personalized to each
Yeah.
individual dog or animal. So
Yeah.
what's that process like for you?
So that process uses the Chinese medicine food therapy. So the Chinese, over thousands of years, have looked at everything that we put in our body, and we have great evidence of effects that food has on our body. So if you think about it, things like asparagus and dandelion, they make you pee more. It's like, okay, good. Then it's kind of acting as a diuretic. Well, that's, helping water flow through the kidneys. So very good for draining things, like draining toxins, that sort of thing. So also good for like the liver. We look at, so someone's anemic or feeling run down, then we're like, well, what's a good blood tonic? Well, any food that's red is a good blood tonic. Things like liver and heart and beef, those bloody red things.
Yeah.
Really good blood. You want to build blood? I mean, it's to me, it's very common sense. Like treats like. So if you've got heart issues, you better be eating some heart. And, it's kind of hard to find brain to eat, but we can find things that look like brain. So if you look at a walnut, looks like a brain. If you look at a cashew, it looks like a kidney. If you look at a lot of beans, look like kidneys. So not that beans are great for our dogs, but they are really good for people with kidney issues. So the Chinese have worked out, and you can look up these tables on any website. Actually, our website has them all on it. So what I do is I look at the animal, and we have a pet personality quiz on the website. It's a free download. We also have a human personality quiz. So if you want to figure out how you tick, but it's based on Chinese medicine, the 5 elements. And so when we look at the 5 elements and we determine what element that patient is. So I'm a wood element. Wood element is ruled by the liver and the gallbladder. We're pretty easygoing, and we don't really care if everything's perfect. And we are fine until everything gets really frustrating, and then we explode like a volcano. And better be nobody in my path when I'm being the volcano. And so there are foods that I know that I can eat to help keep that volcano from exploding. So dark leafy bitter greens, mustard greens, arugula. I'm growing arugula in my garden right now. And I'm just walking by there grabbing arugula all the time. And I love it. My husband's like, I'm not sure I like this. It's kind of bitter. And I'm like, that's because you're not a wood personality. It doesn't do for you what it does for me. So a lot of times when you have a craving for something, it's because your body says, I kind of could use that. So I use that. I look at their personality, and I look at, well, do you have deficiencies? Like, are you anemic? Do you have weak tendons? Do you have weak muscles, or, atrophied muscles? Or do you have an excess of something? Like, are they frustrated? Are they angry? Are they, being aggressive? So we look at all of those things, and then we figure out how to balance them out. And we look at the different foods that are used to do that. So, the diet is designed to support the elements that are weak and kind of calm down the things that are a little excessive and crazy. So like my own dogs, I have huge herb gardens and vegetable gardens, and actually even my cats. It's really fun. They love to hang out in the gardens, and the dogs will kind of go through the herbs, and they'll kind of sniff a few. They might taste a couple, and then all of a sudden they'll stop and just start chowing down on one. I'm like, okay, you needed that today. That's great. So they're pretty good at that. And we see that with the livestock as well. And even with our chickens, when I give them a whole bunch of different greens from the gardens, you'll see some of them going for one and some of them going for another. For people who have horses, you really should plant a hedgerow with all kinds of different edible plants and let them pick them by themselves what they want, because they're very good at that, much better than we are.
Beautiful. I love that. So where do I want to go from here? why? Well, I'm trying to decide, like, how can someone, is it necessary for a pet parent to completely jump away from the allopathic side? Or I know a lot of people, my friends, will sort of, like dance between the two, because
Right.
we still have local municipalities that,
Yes.
require us to register our pets and
Right.
vaccinate to a
Right.
certain level. And
Yeah.
so how do you balance that, especially the vaccination side? I guess
Yeah.
that's really where I'm going.
It becomes a difficult dance. So I'm an integrated practitioner. Even though I did a lot of, we'll call it complementary therapies and food therapy and all of that, there are certain things that we still have to do. And there are certain medications. It's like short term, but Western medicine is very, very good for an acute condition. I've got an animal who's in severe pain. Yeah, I can do acupuncture. I can give him some herbs, but we might need a traditional medication right now to get him over the hump while everything else is starting to work. So I don't throw that stuff away. As far as the vaccinations, we're really stuck because rabies vaccine is required by almost every township and given every 3 years. So we know that for a lot of animals, it lasts longer than 3 years, and we can do a blood titer to show that they still have antibodies, but most municipalities will not accept that. So we're a little bit stuck on that one. The best thing that I can say with that is, if you're stuck getting a rabies vaccine, ask your veterinarian for a thimerosal-free vaccine. The new, supposedly latest and greatest that scares me to death is the new self-amplifying RNA rabies vaccine. I would say no. So you really want to ask your veterinarian, which vaccine are we using? Can we get the thimerosal-free vaccine? They may or may not know what you're talking about. As far as the other vaccines, we know that the core vaccines like distemper, parvo, hepatitis, they usually will last 5 to 7 years. And even on AVMA and AHA websites, it says, these vaccines should be given no more often than every 3 to 5 years, which is still an arbitrary number. There's no science behind that. It's arbitrary. But
Right.
we know that it does last longer. So veterinarians should not be giving those core vaccines any more often than every 3 to 5 years. And again, rabies, we're stuck with every 3. All of the other vaccines, the lifestyle vaccines, things like Lyme disease, kennel cough, influenza, leptospirosis, we really need to look at the lifestyle of the pet. Are they a little tiny dog living in a high-rise apartment? Are they a hunting dog that's out in the fields, running through the forests, and the streams and the lakes? That's 2 totally different scenarios. Does your dog go to boarding, grooming, daycare? Because they are going to have requirements, which I wish we could educate them better and get them, unfortunately, they're getting educated by Big Pharma, who is saying every dog who comes in here needs to have this list of 16 vaccines. And me personally, I won't board my animals because I'm not going to do that to them. I bought all the grooming equipment and learned how to groom my dogs because I don't want to have to give all the vaccinations just so they can get pretty. They can have kind of choppy haircuts from me instead. It's fine. They don't go anywhere. They don't do anything. They're not show dogs. So, you have to kind of make up your mind. How much can you do yourself? What is the lifestyle of your pet? And we do get some veterinarians who say, I will not see your pet unless it is up to date on X, Y, and Z. Most of them are saying it has to be up to date on rabies, but you'll get others who say, oh no, they have to be up to date on distemper, parvo, kennel cough. And no, I would look for somebody else.
Yeah.
And then for our cats, I've got 2 subsets of cats at my house. I have 2 indoor cats who never leave the house, never go anywhere. They barely leave my laundry room. That's where they hang out. My 7 outdoor cats, slightly different exposure. So, look at what's your animal doing. Cats are really interesting because they are really good at making really ugly cancerous tumors anywhere where we give them injections, and it can be any injection. So I really want to minimize what we're giving to our kitty cats. You want to stretch that out as long as possible. So don't, oh, while I'm here, yeah, he's really not due for his rabies till next year, but I'm already here. Yeah, don't do that. Wait till next year.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my dogs is 10 and a half, approaching 11. And so she was due for her 3-year rabies this year. And I asked about titers and got the price tag, but then also realized that it doesn't matter because the municipality where I live won't accept the titers anyway. They still want the actual.
Yeah. Well, and that's something else that I think is really giving a black eye to the veterinary community, the cost of titers. So one of my veterinary friends messaged me a couple of months ago because I had done a video on titering. And I said, a rabies titer shouldn't be more than $100. And she emailed me and said, where are you getting a rabies titer for less than $100? Because the lab that I use is charging me, the veterinarian, $450 for a rabies titer. And she said, I don't even mark them up to my clients, and it's still a ridiculous number. So, most veterinarians will double whatever the lab fee is. So that's a $900 titer. That is beyond stupid. Right. So here's the answer. And I gave her this answer, and I said, I can't believe veterinarians don't know this. Almost all rabies titers are run at Kansas State University Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. Almost all. So the big labs that the veterinarians use to send all their lab work out to, they're sending them to Kansas State. So the lab is paying $47 to get that titer run and then charging the vet $450, and then the vet is charging the client $900.
Oh, gosh.
So veterinarians need to know, hey, I can just set up an account with Kansas State and I can still, make money on this. And I, like, in my practice, oh my gosh, we made a deal with the lab that we were using, which has since been bought by Mars, the candy company. So the national lab. So that's not good. But at the time it was not owned by them. And we made a deal with them and we said, look, we are going to run a lot of titers because our practice ran on titers. We tried not to vaccinate at all. If you've got a positive titer, there's no way you're getting a vaccine. And so we did a ton and we made a deal with them and we got a special price. And so our titer prices were very low compared to everybody else. But I was like, any veterinary office could call the lab and say, listen, I'm going to run 300 of these a month. Give me a deal. And they will. I don't think veterinarians know that they can negotiate with the labs. And maybe it's harder now that they're, owned by the big pet food company. I don't know, but veterinarians could still set up their own account because Kansas State also does the Distemper Parvo titers. It's like, well, why wouldn't I send it there? It's cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hearing that is kind of nice to know that my vet, the price they quoted me was, this sounds like the at cost price because it was in the $400 range.
Which is crazy. And there are veterinarians online who say, oh, I just tell people it's $600 to make them shut up and just let me give the shot. And I'm like, not good. Like, that's a terrible attitude. We don't want them to just shut up. They're saying, I watched a video the other night on vaccine hesitancy. And it was a veterinarian being paid by a drug company that makes a bunch of vaccines and talking about vaccine hesitancy and how it's so awful and how we can talk to our clients to change their minds and make them accept everything that we recommend. Now, this person also said that every dog in the country should be vaccinated for Lyme disease, while she had a map up on the screen showing that there aren't ticks and there isn't Lyme disease in like Arizona, Colorado, like this big swatch of the country. I'm like, why would I vaccinate those dogs? Wait a minute. I'm pretty confused.
Yeah. But if they travel, that's what I've always said.
That was it.
And I outside of the area.
I'm like, okay, but if you it's just a dumb statement. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I just hear those kinds of things and smoke comes out my ears. I'm like, or we could talk to the people about the individual pets instead of just making it a blanket requirement that all dogs have to have these 27 vaccines. I mean, it's just crazy. Right. So what I would say to your listeners, if you use boarding, grooming, daycare, or your veterinarian has crazy requirements in order to see your pet, Don't give all the vaccines at one time. Try to pare it down as much as you can based on the lifestyle of your pet. My book, Raising Naturally Healthy Pets, the vaccine chapter in there is the longest chapter because it talks about how do they get that disease? Is my dog going to be susceptible to that? How long does the vaccine last? Is it a good vaccine? Is it a highly reactive vaccine? All knowledge that can empower you to make the right decisions when you're standing there. So if you kind of have in your mind ahead of time, like, yeah, I might want this one, let's talk about it, or no way, I'm getting that one, I'm not talking about it. If you have that knowledge in your head, it makes the conversation easier. So my thing is, I want people to be educated, to be able to, like for me, I have a lot of animals. I couldn't afford to send them all to boarding anyway. It's for me, it is cheaper and better to have someone come stay on my farm and take care of everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to make those decisions. Like what works best for your lifestyle? I have dogs that need grooming every few weeks. It's a pain in the butt. I would love to drop them off at the groomer, but you know what? They don't really like it that much. And it's stressful. And then I would have to give them all these things that I don't want to give them. So for me, it's easier to just bite the bullet and take dogs in the shower with me.
Yeah. That's funny. It's funny, like in some dogs I found that like, they're like, ooh, shower fun, like the water's coming from a different direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got a puppy last summer. And so that was new phase of life, having a geriatric dog versus a brand new, fresh into the world puppy. And so, yeah, I did have to think about, okay, like, how do I want to go about this whole vaccination thing? Where, I live in the high Sierra of California. It's very dry, and our waterways are moving, so it's not a lot of that stagnant water that some of these diseases, naturally sort of fester in, I guess you could say. And so, but I guess I was lucky because my vet was willing to work with me on the timing, and I wanted to wait a little later until she was a little bigger and I felt like her immune system was more robust to handle that insult. Because this is the other thing that kills me is that the doses of the vaccines are not body weight specific or size. They're literally one size fits all.
Yep. So you can have a 200-pound Great Dane or a 2-pound teacup poodle. It's all the same.
Yeah, and they get the same amount, and that's crazy to me. Even I would say in Western medicine we don't do that. Like we have the ability to like dose based on size, depending on what we're doing. Like if it's an immunoglobulin, then all of those are weight based. And then, like we obviously have like pediatric formulations versus adult formulations, but it doesn't seem like veterinary medicine has that either. And I'm like, it just, especially from, again, like a practitioner's perspective and a pharmacist who talk about like being browbeaten and brainwashed into the vaccine, like all of that dialogue or however you want to label it. It's very interesting. And so I very much encourage the quote unquote vaccine hesitancy. I think it's healthy to ask questions. I think we should be questioning and saying, oh, show me the evidence. You want to scream science at me? Show me the science. Oh, wait, there's not that much of it.
And the problem is we have so many doctors, whether they're veterinarians, human MDs, that are so close-minded. And, one of the things that really has bothered me ever since I wrote my first book, and I actually held my first book back because I needed to add something in because when I first published, it was when they first started using the oral flea and tick chews that are insecticides, pesticides that we're feeding to our pets. And the bright lights just started flashing in my head going, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I have to include this in here. We can't start doing this. And the problem is that the veterinary industry is so brainwashed by the big pharma industry. They think these things are perfectly safe. And yet we have hundreds of thousands of adverse event reports to FDA, and FDA will willingly admit, probably only 1% of adverse events are actually reported. And like, So if you have 300,000 and that's only 1%, that means there's a lot of adverse events.
Right. Let's do some
And
math.
exactly. And then they go, oh, well, millions of doses have been sold and animals are fine. I'm like, well, let's define fine. So if we have animals, the thing is, animals don't read and write, and they don't talk. And so if you have a dog who's been dumbed down because their brain is inflamed, how do you know? It's not like they could read the newspaper yesterday and they can't today. If they can still find their way to the food bowl and the door to go outside, we're all like, yeah, they're fine. Let's look at the fact that they're drooling all the time. They've got muscle twitching. They've got red, itchy feet. They've got skin issues. They have muscle tremors. They have seizures. And it's really interesting. FDA actually went back with these products after they'd been out a couple of years and made the drug companies put a warning on there that said, this class of drugs has been associated with neurologic events and seizures in dogs. Use carefully with dogs with a history of seizures. And yet I would see records from new clients with dogs that are coming to me because they're having seizures. And the previous veterinarian is dispensing the dose of pesticide along with their month's supply of phenobarbital for their seizures.
Oh my God.
Is anybody paying any attention here? So I am so against these pesticides. They're neurotoxins. I don't care whether you're putting them on topically, feeding them to them. There's now a 12-month injection. There's no antidote for these. Once you put them in, you cannot get them out. If they have a reaction, there's nothing you can do except supportive care, hope they don't die. And people will say, oh, well, this one lasts for 90 days. So on day 91, it'll be back to normal. No way. Most of these dogs have seizures for life once they start to seizure. Their brain is fried. So I'm so against these things. And I get so much pushback from the veterinary community. They're like, they're so safe. I use them on my own dog. I'm like, well, you're much braver than I am. There's no way. There are even some holistic veterinarians who think that they are absolutely fine. And I'm so far away from that. And we now have studies coming out saying, hey, the metabolites of these things are in the urine and in the stool, and it's killing all the little insects and dung beetles and things that help break down that stool in the environment. Oh, by the way, all the waterways in Europe are contaminated with fipronil, which is a topical pesticide that's used on dogs. And it's because we've used so much of it on the dogs. And it's found in bird nests, and we have dead baby birds because chemical-laden hair is being used in these nests. The children of France have fipronil in their hair. There's all these studies showing it doesn't just stop at your dog. And by the way, if you're putting these topical things on your pets or feeding them these chemicals, they're shedding them in the environment to you. And the old, oh, it's fine. Once it dries, your kids can hug them and pet them and kiss them. No, you are exposing everybody in your household to these chemicals. Just don't do it. It's so bad for our environment, so bad for the animals, and frankly, so bad for us.
Yeah. I feel like the glyphosate conversation is very similar.
Oh, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So glyphosate is a big one. There's a great study that shows that pets that are fed dry extruded kibble, which about 95% of pets are, because there's so many grains and legumes used in those foods because they need a starch to make them stick into the little kibble balls. Those pets have very high glyphosate levels when tested because all those grains and legumes are sprayed with glyphosate. And then when we look at dogs and cats who are fed raw diets that don't contain any grains or legumes, or gently cooked, homemade, whatever, that doesn't have all those grains and legumes, their glyphosate levels are basically non-existent.
Yeah.
So why would we choose to feed glyphosate-laden food, which is species inappropriate to begin with? But why would we choose that when we know that it's causing problems? I was just reading something today, maybe it was last night, about life expectancy. The life expectancy in our country is going down, not up.
Yeah.
And, when we look at things like puberty in little girls, 12 years old, not like I was 17. And I'm like, well, what happened to those 5 years in between?
Yeah.
Like we look at even what was going on in the 1970s versus what is happening now. Boys' voices used to change when they were 18 or 19. Now they change at 12 and 13. So this is all these endocrine disruptors that are in our food chain. And that's why, for me, I want my pets to, this is why I have a farm. We process our own meat chickens. We have our own eggs. We have raw milk from our cows. And I raise all these organic vegetables and herbs because that's the level that I want my family to eat. And I get it. I'm crazy. Not everybody can do that. If you live in an apartment, that's pretty hard to do. But still shopping the perimeter of the grocery store, whether it's for our pets or for ourselves. If you look at ultra processed pet food, it's in the middle aisles in the grocery store. That's where we're not supposed to shop. And there's good reasons for that.
Yeah, and farmers markets. So even if you do live in a city, if you can find a local produce or some sort of local farmers market, a lot of times the farmers will come into the city to provide their freshly grown produce. So I would suggest that too. Yeah, we are in the Lake Tahoe area, in the South Lake area. There was a big fire a few years ago called the Caldor Fire, left a big burn scar. And so right now we are battling both the state and the federal government who want to come in and mass spray glyphosate through that entire forest area to supposedly cut down on the amount of invasives that they think will grow back there.
Nice.
And so talk about, thank goodness, a community uprising and protest and like utilizing all of our resources. And I think for now we've got them to put it on pause, but I have this feeling that it hasn't gone away because this is not a new practice. And that's the thing is I had no idea that this is already happened throughout other parts of California. And so even thinking about that, like how, especially for those of us that do spend a lot of time outside in the woods, in nature, you think you're doing yourself a favor, which you definitely are. Don't stop doing that. But it's just so crazy to think that, oh, I'm inadvertently being exposed to these chemicals.
Well, just imagine if you lived in the Great Plains, where they grow all the grains and this stuff is being sprayed all the time. I feel bad for people who live there because you can, like, if I had an organic garden and my organic garden is next to a field that's being sprayed, guess what? My garden's getting sprayed too.
Yeah.
They're not supposed to do it on, they're not supposed to do it on windy days, but but it's contaminating our soil, it's contaminating our waterways. So if we want our pets to live longer and we want them to be healthier, then we need to cut back on the toxins that we're putting into them, whether that's pesticides, ultra processed food, over vaccination. Some of the chemicals, drugs that they're coming out with now are, in my opinion, very dangerous. The monoclonal antibody injections, we're seeing so many side effects. Like, you can't just get rid of nerve growth factor and say that's found in almost every cell in the body. So when we say, oh, we're giving it to make their arthritis hurt less, it's like, yeah, but now their heart doesn't work as well and their brain isn't working and, their nervous system isn't working. So what did we solve here? Like we made things worse. And so I would encourage people that, one of the great things about human medicine, you go to the pharmacy to pick up a prescription, you get about 5 pages of this. These are the side effects. This drug reacts with this. Watch for these symptoms. You don't get that in veterinary medicine. You get a bottle of pills and they go, here, give these. And so what I would caution people, anything, whether it's an injection that's going to be given, a vaccine that's going to be given, a bottle of pills that is handed to you, a cream, an ointment, I don't care what it is, ask, are there any potential side effects? What should I watch for? And by the way, if they say there's none, that's a lie, because anything, including drinking too much water, can have a side effect. So there are always side effects. It's just a matter of how often are they noted. And so we all carry around little mini computers in our pockets. And I would say if they can't tell you, just put in your search engine the name of the drug and side effects. it'll come up instantly. Another great place to look is look on Facebook. And so if they tell you, I want to give your dog a shot of Librela, go on Facebook and in the search, put Librela. You'll find about 10 groups with hundreds of thousands of people talking about how it killed their dogs. So, that is a really good place to go look for who's talking about this and what are they saying. And sometimes you'll be appalled and amazed and go, okay, I need something alternative to that because that's pretty scary.
I think it's a good like general concept for people to understand is that even though, and this is part of just like the difference in the view of bodies, of biology, whether it's a human or an animal. We, in the allopathic world, they like to compartmentalize and look at things by organ system, or, and they think that, okay, well, I'm going to develop this treatment, whatever, whether it's an injection or a pill or topical, whatever. And I just want to target this one organ system, and that's where it's going to stay, and that's where it's going to act, and then I don't have to worry about the rest of the body. And that's just not true. So whether it is a monoclonal antibody or an mRNA technology, even if it's a topical cream, once you put it on your skin, it's absorbed, and then it's absorbed into your bloodstream as well. Where does your blood go? Your whole body.
Yeah. I had a friend email me the other day, and her dog has been on topical steroid drops on her eyes for a couple of months because she's had some problems, and her blood work is always pristine. It's an older dog, and she just had blood work run, and she's got a whole bunch of things that are way out of whack. And like her alk phos is really high. And she said, could this be from the topical steroid eye drops? My vet said they're not absorbed and that wouldn't have an effect. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what rock she's hiding under, but here's 20 research studies showing how it's absorbed, how it can, affect the adrenal axis, how, it can change the lab work. And so I sent that to her. She goes, well, I guess I'll be sending this to my vet. And I said, okay, we still need to work this up. Like, let's get an ultrasound. Let's look at the adrenal glands. Let's see, we'll look at the liver, what might have changed. And maybe there's something else going on, but we can't discount the fact that, yes, we've been putting a topical steroid on this dog that's being absorbed. Like maybe your cornea is a barrier, but your conjunctiva and your eyelids, there's a lot of blood vessels there. It's getting absorbed. So, sometimes we have to be our own kind of detectives looking up the side effects. And this is why I'm so passionate about education for every pet owner so that they can be their pet's advocate from a point of education and empowerment. Just kind of blindly walking in and saying, I don't know, you're going to get a lot of things that you may go home and go, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. So it's much better to be proactive up front. And you don't, these days you're lucky if you get 5, maybe 7 minutes in front of the doctor. So you better go in pretty prepared. As a matter of fact, on our website, we have a veterinary visit checklist that you can download. It's worth filling. It's a couple of pages long, but it's worth filling that out ahead of time to make sure that you get everything that you're concerned about is written down so that when you get in and they're trying to rush you out the door in 5 minutes, you're like, well, wait a minute. I have these other 3 things I wanted to talk about that we haven't gotten to. So it's really good to go in prepared and go in saying, yeah, I don't need any vaccines today. That's not what I'm here for. I don't want to even talk about that, or whatever you're there for.
Yeah. So, oh man, I feel like you and I could talk for another hour, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time, including the listeners. But we can definitely have you back to I think maybe flesh some more of these things out and maybe talk more specifically about something if, depending on the feedback that we get here, because, I love that. But so let's talk about resources. Let's start with your platform and your books and all of your resources. And then if there's any other place that you want to bring forward, please feel free. Okay.
So my website is naturallyhealthypets.com. We're on almost all social media under Naturally Healthy Pets. I've I'm working on book number 10. I think we have 8 of them on our website, and we do have a coupon code for your listeners for 50% off any of my books on naturallyhealthypets.com. And that is Light Body 50. They can get 50% off of the books. Another really, really good resource for anybody who wants more information other than, I mean, there's a ton of information on our website, a ton of free downloads. And my podcast is on YouTube and all the normal stations. But there's another really good website, truthaboutpetfood.com. That is Susan Thixton, and she is the consumer advocate for pet food. It's a really tough job. She's like the only person in the country that will do it. When we go to the pet food regulation meetings, there's about 500 FDA and corporate industry people there, and then there's Susan. She's on the consumer side, and she's done a really good job of fighting for our pets, fighting for transparency in what goes into pet food. I don't think that people realize that all the waste products from the human food industry go to pet food. So if it is deemed not human edible, it's going to your pets, which is why I'm really picky about what goes into my pets. And I do have on my website a download that will give you the list of foods that I am willing to feed my pets. Susan has a bigger list that she does a ton of research for. So that's another really good resource. I don't know all the brands in the country. I'm on the East Coast. So on the West Coast, there are some good brands that I don't feed because they're just not local. But Susan has a bigger list. So we also have courses on Dr. Judy U, but I would highly recommend just go to the website, type in the search bar, whatever it is that you want to look for. If your pet is having a problem with allergies or fleas or whatever, type it in the search bar, a whole bunch of stuff's going to come up.
Okay. Oh, and then one last question. Do you do remote consults or like virtual, or do you all of your work with the dog like in person? Like if someone wanted, like a nutrition specific, would that be something you could do remotely?
So I do very few at this point because I have 27 irons in the fire and I'm traveling a lot, speaking all over the world for the next few months. But we do, if you email us for a consultation, we have about a dozen veterinarians that are holistic veterinarians that we have picked. Cool. That do a great job. So we have a couple of them that really specialize in cancer cases, a couple that really specialize in GI cases. So we have a bunch. So if I'm not available, we'll send you a list of veterinarians that you can get a hold of.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Again, I feel like we talked about a lot. We covered a lot of ground, but I definitely know that there's more. So
always.
Well, thank you so much, Judy. I really appreciate your time and your expertise and all the work that you're doing in the world and putting out there. Everybody, make sure you head on over to naturallyhealthypets.com for the discount code and all of the social links and even the website link. That all lives on our show notes page, which is drlaramay.com/podcast. And so if you're driving or hiking or walking or whatever, don't worry, we've compiled it all for you. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. We'll catch you on the next episode.